Hi, for today's edition of Simply Stated, I decided to do an extra edition this week. This will be episode 5 in the Simply Stated series, and I would like to also apologize. Last week I accidentally titled the episode on Nicole Scherzinger as episode 10. It was originally going to be in the Ghost Stories series, and frankly just made the error and then re-uploaded it this week and actually uploaded the rough copy so people could watch the original show without any special effects, since there were some issues with the special effects as well. Getting into the show today, we're going to be talking about Luigi Mangione. This will be a very quick show. He's suspected of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The December 4th shooting, and he remains in custody in Pennsylvania State Prison. It's also important to note that Mangione is facing charges of murder in the second degree and possession of an untraceable ghost gun, otherwise known as a 3D printed ghost gun. There's some things to know about Mangione that a lot of people probably wouldn't realize right off the face of it, think he's just some kind of murderer or shooter or just a suspect. The reality is that he is not a stupid person. He studied computer science and earned a bachelor's degree and master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League school in computer sciences. And it turns out he's got some really odd followers. He's developed a following online among people. Notably, Britney Spears put together a meme of adoration for him this week with music, talking about how he was a really attractive man. It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen on Britney Spears' Instagram page. And I've always been a big supporter of hers and her personal experiences, but it's important to know that she's also part of Endeavor WME, which is a Russian Chinese company affiliated with the FSB of Russia. And a bizarre crossover is that another client of Endeavor WME, which is Gwen Stefani, the supposed singer, but she's a lip syncer, and noted labor trafficker in the US, flubbed her lyrics this week on The Voice for her songs and left the show. She claims to be a Catholic, but she's actually somebody of Iranian background. And as born to know, she was asking for prayers this week at a Catholic church. My experience with her, because she's actually been in Michigan this year, early this year of the summer, it was really bizarre. She was someone that had stalked me in the past and stolen material from me and knew I was being labor trafficked and openly did not care about it. And it's important to know that her husband, Blake Shelton, is also guilty of labor trafficking and stealing material. And part of the stories that we've covered in the Thought Project, just so you know, the sort of ghastly stories with the women losing limbs and neurological function that I visited down in Charlottesville before they died, DIED. And you know that these events have been pretty regular as far as the FSB interactions in the US and labor trafficking. So I'm going to go in a circuit on this episode and hopefully you can kind of follow all of it. But the point to understand is that Mangione has seen a weird surge in support from what is supposed to be either from the Catholic Church, but it's all coming from people and profiles that are actually tied back to the FSB of Russia. There's also a correlating factor that I've covered for you in previous episodes through my YouTube channel on Simply Stated and the Thought Project, just so you know, of the old cult of ISIS, which is also tied in with the FSB of Russia as well. The problem with the cult is that it was actually started out of ancient Egypt. It centers around the goddess Isis, and it's fairly violent and has never stopped. I went through a series of interviews with men from Egypt when I lived in the DC area for 19 years who claimed that they had really severe problems. The Egyptian government struggled regularly with attacks around the ancient pyramids because of the cult of ISIS. Very, very, very bizarre crimes, use of genetic systems, and oftentimes by the Russian FSB and other cult groups related to the cult of ISIS. So what I'm trying to get to is that the Egyptian government actually took information that I gave them because of my interactions with the Indian military in the past, because they had deployed and used laser guns effectively, and the Egyptian government has actually since then decided to go in a different direction. As opposed to buying more hardware, started buying laser guns to use and effectively pull down crime around the pyramids in ancient Egypt, or the areas that we call ancient Egypt, modern Egypt today. So the point is that, I'm not trying to confuse you at all, there is a strange proliferation of ISIS cult related behavior recently, and Luigi Mangione appears to be another person tied to what is not really the Catholic Church, but essentially the cult of ISIS here in the US, which has hidden behind or in parts of the Catholic Church here in the US, and is also appears to be another FSB trained person. There's also been a lot of issues with how he arrived on the scene to actually kill the CEO, how he left, and pretty clearly used the Signet system, meaning that there was another person at large who worked with him on the Signet systems to get him in and out for the attack. He's essentially being presumed guilty at this point without further information. And it's also important to note that Christopher Wray of the FBI was the director, but stepped down this past week. He was held guilty on 11 counts by Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, for failure to carry out his job. And that's part of the reason he stepped down, after months of being questioned by both the House and Senate, mostly the House, but also the Senate, for months on his behavior and failures as a leader. And one of those major failures has actually been that he is considered a member of the modern day cult of ISIS himself, and has allowed a number of attacks to go through related to them, and specifically also to Endeavor WME. It's also important to note that Mangione was picked up in Altoona, Pennsylvania, not far from where Cersei and Wilhelm, the couple I've detailed in my series, actually also live. So what I'm trying to say to you is that it's fairly obvious that he was somebody who was using a Signet system off of the FSB of Russia based on behavior and profile. He's different from Freddie Klein, who was arrested and put away in 2024, because he's differently educated and trained and is a computer scientist himself. So it's important to understand that he would be someone who could operate and use a Signet system himself in those crimes. This has been another edition of Simply Stated for you. I hope you're enjoying this holiday season in the US and that you've enjoyed this episode. See you again. Thanks. Ooh.